The Splat Charger is a basic all-round charger that doesn't really excel in anything, but at the same time provides reliable range, damage, and the game-breaking ability to pierce. Let's discuss how to get the most out of this weapon in SalmonRun. Stats. The Splat Charger deals 300 damage for one fully charged shot. It takes 60 frames, which is 1 second, to fully charge it. Like a lot of other chargers, it can pierce through non-armoured enemies. Everything it hits with a fully charged shot will deal 300 damage. Its tap shots do 50 damage, and partially charging will inflict anywhere between 50 to 150 damage, depending on how long you hold before firing. Only fully charged shots pierce. The Splat Charger can also store its fire like other chargers. Once fully charged, you can enter swim form and not lose that charge. It can store its charge for 75 frames, which is 1.25 seconds, whilst it's submerged in ink. Popping in and out of swim form resets this time, so long as you keep that charge stored. The Splat Charger rather unfortunately has quite a poor ink tank. It only has 5.5 full charges. You'd be surprised by how fast you go through these. In a vacuum it doesn't sound bad, but when compared to all other chargers in its class, you start to wonder why its ink tank is so poor. At 18% per fully charged shot, the Splat Charger is only behind the E-liter and the Sniper in terms of ink usage, but with those you have far higher damage, more range, and with the Sniper you get more shots. The same goes for its tap shots. At 2.25% per shot, it's the same as tap shotting with the E-liter. It takes 3 times as long to charge the weapon when the ink tank is empty or if you're in the air. After firing, there is a 20 frame cooldown before you can start recovering ink. Now I could talk all day about this, but without going off on a tangent, it's important to recognise this severe limitation with the Splat Charger. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to be really careful with its ink tank. After throwing a splat bomb, you only have enough ink for one fully charged shot before the ink tank runs out. As mentioned, when the tank runs out, it takes 3 times as long to charge a shot, which isn't ideal in chaotic situations. In most situations, you'll want to avoid using bombs unless you categorically need them. Boss slaying. Steelhead should always be a priority for you as a Splat Charger, as you'll often have the most range to take them out. It is one fully charged shot to defeat them. Don't leave them active for too long, and if you find that they are being repeatedly stalled and not defeated, then it should be an urgent priority to defeat them, but I'll speak about that a bit later in the video. Steel eels, slamming lids, and scrappers all have 500 HP, so you'll need 2 fully charged shots to take them out. Scrappers may prove annoying, given that you have to stun them first, and that's another 2 extra fully charged shots if your teammates aren't helping you, but hopefully other players will help with stunning them so you can concentrate on damaging the exposed enemy. Just for context, you will use roughly 80% of your ink tank to defeat one scrapper, so choose your battles wisely. Consider stunning them for your teammates to finish off. Flipper floppers are okay to manage. You can paint the circle with tap shots or partials and defeat the damaged enemy. If you want to try and shoot them out the sky, you'll need 4 fully charged shots, which is a bit risky. If they're already weakened, then it's so much easier. For big shots, you'll be able to take them down from quite far away, and oftentimes this is usually the best way to do this, as you may struggle if you throw yourself into a messy area at the cannon. Consider tagging along with a friend and helping to pierce through multiple enemies at once, as this can make clearing the cannon area quite efficient. Stingers and fish sticks are a bit of a nuisance for the Splat Charger, but in freelance you'll be forced to confront them. You'll need slight partials for the stingers, as they have 60 HP per pot, but fish sticks can be defeated with tap shots. You may find painting the stick beneficial for your teammates. If worse comes to worse, consider special usage to take these enemies out. For drizzlers, you'll need 3 shots to take them out, which isn't the worst thing in the world, especially if you're able to combine damaging them with other enemies. Of course, it is always quicker to redirect their torpedoes back at them, and given that you have quite a lot of range, it may fall on you to keep an eye on these. As a charger, you'll see 0 to little benefit from using splat bombs. I'd recommend not using them at all unless their benefit really outweighs the risk of leaving you with that little ink, and really the only instance for this is for moors and flyfish. Piercing through enemies outweighs the bomb's ability to hit multiple enemies, so be really strict with how you use them. If you're struggling against flyfish, then consider using specials to help, as the Splat Charger is quite slow when and trying to generate ink. This also includes egg throwing, and I'd recommend not overdoing this. For night waves, you'll want to really utilise your range and your ability to pierce. You'll also need to recognise when you may need to tap shot and when you may need to take a more supportive role, such as softening up enemies. For gorillas, you should focus on stunning them. They do need 400 to stun, so a fully charged hit falls short, but this can make it easier for your teammates who may have less range or less DPS. Hopefully your teammates will cover you from the small fry whilst you focus on stunning and defeating the gorillas. For rush, you'll want to remain close to your teammates, but also take positions where you can use the charger's piercing to help take out multiple chum with one shot. The key to rush is to always be aggressive where you can, and retreating or taking defensive positions too early will likely see you struggle to reach quota or become overwhelmed by the chum. Having a weapon that pierces during rush is almost as free as having a roller. Don't use bombs, avoid tap shotting unless you have no choice, and prioritise piercing. Mothership is fun with the charger, and you won't need fully charged shots to take out the Chinooks. Tornado and the other night waves will see you utilising your ability to pierce lessers where possible. For king waves, you may struggle a bit. This is because whilst the charger needs you to focus on slaying, it doesn't have the self-sufficiency that other chargers might do. More about that in a bit, but for king waves, I try to stay close to my teammates so that they can help me if I need it, with paint and bombs, and I can help them with piercing and putting substantial damage on enemies around us so that they can defeat them more quickly. Aim to include the kings whenever you fire, and specifically consider yourself maybe one of the better weapons to focus solely on the Ouroboros' bomb, but play within the limits of this weapon and make sure you don't overstay your welcome. Weapon roll. Like all chargers, your main focus is slaying. There isn't much room for flexibility with chargers, and the Splat Charger isn't much different. However, given its mediocre damage and its ink tank, you may struggle with self-sufficiency, which is being able to do everything whilst keeping yourself active. Strong weapons in SalmonRun can usually do multiple things very well with very few drawbacks. Unfortunately, the Splat Charger in SalmonRun isn't one of those weapons. For this reason, it can be tough to take a forward slayer role, and I'd encourage you to only do this if you're very comfortable with things like weapon rolls, boss cycles, awareness, map layouts, things of that nature. This also includes using a weapon that is quite ink inefficient and has overall quite poor DPS. Bad weapons aren't unusable, they have their perks, but they're just harder to maximise in a mode as chaotic as SalmonRun. Recognising what they're good at and what they struggle against is an important part of using subpar weapons. You're excellent against multiple steelheads, and so you should prioritise them, but multiple flyfish? Maybe that's when you consider specials. For all intents and purposes, I find the Splat Charger is most efficient when used as a supportive slayer. Supportive slayers in SalmonRun aren't usually spoken about because the game doesn't reward you for this, outside of power egg numbers, and you don't get recognition for softening up enemies. For example, you could put 99% damage on an enemy, but if your teammate gets that final hit, it counts as their boss. So because the game doesn't incentivize playstyles like this, you find weapons like the Splat Charger become wholly uninspiring. Who wants to be the person that supports instead of getting that big number at the end of the game? I'd recommend playing this way if you struggle with staying active and if you find you're overwhelmed. You can be more supportive by recognizing that in a team game it shouldn't really matter who gets the final hit. Maybe in the next iteration of SalmonRun we'll see boss assists and more supportive actions recognized, but until then it isn't the be and end all of everything to have the most bosses defeated. With the Splat Charger you mostly won't have any choice either, because the weapon can be punishing if you try to overextend or work outside of supportive roles. There's only so much you can do with 5 shots per ink tank. Overextending, tap shotting and throwing bombs means that you won't utilise this weapon in a way that maximises its potential. You want to be proactive in managing enemies wherever you can, and recognising that you may need to defeat or heavily damage enemies earlier is a good way to do this. Enemies that have 500 HP can have their health reduced by over half with just one shot, and this can make it easier for your teammates to take them down fully. Steelheads can provide so much damage to surrounding enemies when you take them out, and again this will provide safety, ink and space. Slamming lids can be used to crush armoured enemies and groups of lessers. The Splat Charger can be a fine addition to any team, just as long as you recognise that it isn't overpowered or free. You'll need to take proactive positions with this weapon and aim to reduce the potential crowds coming towards you. Piercing. Truth be told, the regular charger is probably my least favourite in its entire class. I find it boring, uninspiring, and it needs an ink tank buff. It has nothing unique about it, and I find that all the other chargers can do what it does, but either quicker or more ink efficiently. However, all of that can be true, whilst also accepting that having the Splat Charger in your comp is actually beneficial sometimes. Though the regular charger doesn't feel as strong or as unique as other chargers, it still provides an invaluable mechanic that cannot be matched by most other weapons in the game, which is piercing. 300 damage per shot isn't anything spectacular, sure, but when you factor in the charger's ability to hit multiple enemies for 300 damage with a single shot, you then start to realise the potential this weapon has. Whenever you have a weapon in your comp that pierces, you need to ask yourself the question, what can I damage with one shot? Every single time you fire, you should be thinking about the potential to damage multiple enemies at once, as opposed to just the one in front of you. As I said, all non-armoured enemies can be pierced, and this also includes enemies like Moors, Big Shots, and the exposed enemies on steel eels and slamming lids. And of course, the most obvious examples are lessers. Quahawks especially are the best example and use of a charger's ability to pierce. At higher hazards, Quahawks spawn in larger numbers, often in big clusters, and so having to do 400 damage to each of them individually can take an enormous amount of time. And though lesser management is important, serving primarily to protect you, they don't provide golden eggs, so spending time defeating lessers doesn't actually benefit you from an objective standpoint. You have to splat lessers, however. They are probably the most common way that you become displaced or damaged. In freelance, I often find myself working around lesser spawns and managing them, and Quahawks are the most important of them all. When I have a weapon that pierces, I often try to work out the best way to incorporate damaging Quahawks at all times. With the charger's range, it can be extremely effective at proactively managing lessers without having to overextend or to worry about tap-shotting. 300 damage on a Quahawk means that you give your teammates a much easier time in almost every quantifiable way. Safety, efficiency, egg running, you name it. When you reduce a Quahawk's health by 3/4, you ensure that your teammates who have to fight them can do this much quicker. Imagine your teammates who have an ink rush, for example. It means they only have to swing it 3 times instead of 10 times. It means bombs caught within the radius of the Quahawks will defeat them. It means they're much more likely to go down to AoE from other weapons. There is nothing that can provide more value in terms of strict efficiency when managing bosses or running eggs when you can have a charger deal the majority of damage to enemies from a safe distance with an ability to pierce through them all. If you only take one thing away from this video, please let it be that. Don't feel like as the Splat Charger you need to stand back or hold your shots for the big bosses. Use your shots liberally, be proactive, and always have an eye on what you can line up to combine damage on. I hope this video helps you appreciate the Splat Charger a little bit more. I'll see you guys soon.